You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle Podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of Zesty Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes.
Hello there, Dr. Alex here with you for part 4 of our pre-series leading up to the 5-day challenge coming up. If you haven't listened to the first 3 parts already, make sure you go do that, especially part 1 where I talk about the point of this mini-series. So to summarize real quick, is that we are going through the avatars or personality patterns that we see people getting stuck in through their health and transformation journeys. It often starts in health, but especially as people heal and overcome their health problems, we see the same patterns of behaviors, ways of thinking and feeling, and therefore acting that play out in these prototypical patterns. And so in this series, I'm going through the 7 patterns that we see the most commonly. You can fall into one or more of these. Most often there will be 1 or 2 dominant ones and then some crossover between them. To be perfectly honest, with my health journey and the way things went, I signed up to be a teacher. It's very clear to me that that's what I'm here to do in this life. And in some ways, I've experienced all of these, and thank goodness, because I can't record this podcast series without knowing what this has felt like and seeing thousands and thousands and thousands of women go through this over the course of the years that we've been working with people. And so if you notice that there's a lot of crossover, but especially if you're listening as a coach, as a provider, as a practitioner, as a teacher, just know it's not uncommon that people can have all of these experiences and relate to them in some ways, in some areas of life across the board. And it's perfectly also okay if you don't. Some of us just don't get conditioned with certain things and don't end up having the experience. There's nothing wrong with that. It's more just like, hey, thank goodness, skip that one. All right, so part 4 is called the always wrong one. In some ways, part 4 is a more extreme expression of part 3, though it can be discrete in and of itself. You'll hear the difference and how it comes, because the always wrong one, the one that we're talking about here, is a more disempowered, a less powerful, and a less resourced version of the why am I like this. Because we talked about in the previous section, the why am I like this, on the propensity to put other people's authority above our own. And that is present here. But the always wrong one is not striving oftentimes for a lot of the changes in the habits and the aspirations. This is where instead of the experience of anger and thinking, oh, am I doing this right? Does this person, oh, why can't I do this? I'm so frustrated. This isn't working the way the person told me that it would go. Instead, though, the always wrong one is so disempowered that when you think, if this is you falling into it, that I'm always messing up. This never works out for me. Life never gets better. It's always something. It's not usually anger. It's not bitterness and frustration. This is hurt, powerlessness, lack, right? It's like every time I get money, it goes away. Then my car breaks down. The kids get sick. There's a bill, right? My health gets a little bit better. Oh, then all 3 kids come down with some sort of illness. Or then something happens in my business. There is a sense of despair, powerlessness, and a lack of taking physical action when someone is falling into the pattern of the always wrong one. Because if you've tried the books and tried the supplements and tried the programs and invested in yourself and it never really pans out, at some point the conditioned response is to say, even if those people have the best program out there, and I know that they're helping others, and yes, I watched the testimonial videos and I watched all the transformations on your website and all that, but that's for somebody else. That can't be me. And if you're listening to this, you know that the 5-day challenge is coming up. The always wrong one, when I say stuff like, hey, it's the effortless brain-based habit challenge. All you have to do is listen to us, fill out a couple of things in the workbook, and you could win $500. The always wrong one will think, I never win anything. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to win the $500. Right? So this, if you're listening along and you just were like, oh yeah, that's me, pay attention, because this is how it shows up. And sometimes we don't even notice it. It's just this insidious way that says, nah, that resource isn't going to come up to me. That experience isn't one for me. I'm not that kind of person. It's really easy to spot this always wrong one mentality and emotional state when it comes to food and money, because there tends to be a pattern of lack and hoarding that get interplayed. And this is where people with both money management and food management will often oscillate between the lack makes them hold on to it real tight, the need for it goes up, and then there tends to be this lack mentality of I have to hold on to, keep everything that I possibly can. And so money management becomes very difficult because it always feels like it's getting taken away. Something's happening that is out of your control. Why is this happening? What's going on here? Why is this money getting taken into account? Why does the school need me to buy this stuff? What is going, why do I have to buy more supplements? There's this real lack and a fear, and it's something's always going wrong. And that's why the why am I like this is less severe, and it does get turned around on ourselves, but it's a little bit of a more empowered state. The always wrong one, it's not just you that's wrong, it's like life is wrong, life is hard. And you can hear the self-talk and the emotions when you look out. If you're looking out at what's happening in the world and it's like, oh my gosh, the world's just falling apart and the government doesn't know what they're doing and everybody's just fighting on the internet and it's all going to hell and this is just a disaster. This is that kind of mentality, because that's not the pattern that asks the questions that say, how do I step into leadership based on the fact that I don't like what I'm seeing? If I don't like what's happening, what resources, options, people, tools, helpful things do I need to find to be able to step into co-creating a more happy and healthy world for not just myself, but all of us, right? That is the kind of thinking that breeds transformation. That's the kind of thing that helps us find answers. But when we're in the pattern of the always wrong one, those things are very hard to find. And it becomes very frustrating because oftentimes we will take the action to go find the program, go read the book, listen to the podcast. But the execution of it, or the willingness to think, if I do this, there could be a positive outcome, the very thing that I'm looking for, that's where, when that thinking is malaligned and disempowered, why would you sign up for something that costs thousands of dollars? Why would you get the book for $60? Why would you go do the copay? It's very hard to do that, and that's where sometimes we get excited about options and then we don't take them and we're left wondering What if I had done that program 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 6 months ago? Where would I be now? And then in this line of thinking, though, most people say, it probably would have just not worked out. And really, their life does not end up changing. It's always like a little bit better, a little bit more empowered every year, but life doesn't change that drastically. The people falling into this category, the always wrong one, yes, life can switch up when it's happening to you, but more than likely, if you think about the last couple years, there is probably not that many things that you can say, I set that goal, I did the thing, and here's exactly how that went. Now, if you're a crossover, you may see some evidence of this, but know that you have moved from this or are beginning to transform in different areas, and that's awesome, right? It's easiest to talk about it in the full extreme version of this. And that's where, if you're falling into that and you really think back about your life and you're like, things have not really changed all that much in the way that I set it was set for, the pandemic happened. My job changed. My boss told me this. I got laid off. Those things are not what I'm talking about. This is, I wanted the lake house and I got it. I wanted to start a podcast. I did. And now we have 1.5 million downloads. These are the kind of things that drive someone not in this pattern. So oftentimes when we flip it around and look, if you're not feeling proud of those things, or if you are still having the same goals and they're just not that different, then that can really come up. The last bit of this that I wanted to talk about was people pleasing. Because oftentimes when we are hurt and powerless, and we feel threatened in our safety and our ability to control our experience of the world, is that it's really important to keep the people around us happy, because they become the source of our feel-goodness and our love and our safety. And that is why people in this category are all often very hyper-vigilant to facial expressions, tone, and body language. So whether it's partners, kids, coworkers, friends, these people are often, the second someone else comes in, they already know, is that person upset? Do they seem upset with me? These people tend, if you're relating to this, the always wrong one will always or tend to go to, my partner's mad, they must be mad at me, or they don't look that happy, they must be mad at me, or my boss didn't say good job, so it must mean I did a bad job. Or people do this even with food. They'll come to me, since I'm an MD, and they'll be like, well, I ate food, it wasn't bad food, but it also wasn't nutritious. And I'm always like, I don't care about that, right? But what they're doing is justifying what they're doing to make sure that me staying happy is then not, because if I'm unhappy, then I say something, and then they could feel guilty or bad about that, and we don't want that. And so this is something I used to do all the time, and really, this one's a little rough to internalize, but it's true, is that is us manipulating the person so that we have a certain experience. Even though we say people pleasing and it feels that way. I remember the first time I had that thought where I was like, man, I'm actually wanting to navigate their experience so it's easier for me, and then I have the audacity to think that they should thank me for it because I'm pleasing them. Right? I was like, that is so messed up, Alex. And of course, it's a slippery slope on this one, because self-awareness can kind of hurt like that, right? It stung when I had that thought, but boy, did it lead to a lot of resources. And that's why we're going through these. As hard as it is sometimes to really be honest with ourselves and authentic, that's why we talk about courage powering authenticity. We have to have the cojones to say, shoot, I'm doing that, but rather than melt down over it and become more disempowered, I'm going to do something about that. And then, for us, there is a very clear come to the 5-day thing. That's why we have it. These things are creating the awareness of the resources we need to look for. And the subconscious, now that we're talking about it, now that it's come up, is going to look for resources for you. Your job is to not consciously get in the way of that, right? And that's why we're teaching the subconscious reprogramming tools inside the challenge, so that it's more of a step back process. Rather than journaling about all the ways that you suck, we don't do it that way, because Megan and I don't see that working. And if you think that, oh, I just haven't beat myself up enough about my people pleasing, please stop. Stop. That's not going to work. That's not how that happens. And therefore, thinking about, oh no, now I'm a manipulator, cut it out, right? If you have the awareness, okay. It's like, it's raining outside. Okay. Right? There's not, oh my gosh, it's raining and my car's going to go out. And what? This is the same thing. This is what my pattern is. Noted. That's it. Nothing more. The only nothing, the more is, what resources do I need to stand in my own power and act from that place and know that I am loving myself and showing up for myself, so that when that person's mad, and I don't know why they're mad, I can sit with my own emotions and my own anxieties long enough to actually be there for that person, to really be a good friend, partner, coworker, parent, instead of turning around and saying, how is this about me? We gain the power to have our own back and stand in that, so that we can really show up the way that we're super proud of. But you will not get there by making yourself more wrong. It's a really, really fine line. And if you're like, Alex, how do I do this where I know that about myself and still move forward? Well, I'm going to tell you to come to the 5-day challenge. But the other thing is to watch the thoughts. If you keep having the same thought and that same disempowered feeling, move your attention, go do something else. Read something, listen to something, go for a walk, move your body, eat a food you like, get support from someone, ask for a hug. Actually support yourself in the experience of having a realization without looping into the very same thoughts and emotions and activities that got you there in the first place. We are so proud of you of doing this work. This is hard, and it's rare that people show up for this. It takes a lot to do this. You are in the minority here, and that is commendable. That alone should be enough to say, I deserve to get out of this loop. This is not who I am, and this is not the pattern that I'm going to continue to maintain in my life. I deserve results. I deserve more from life, and this is who I'm going to be. All right, I'll see you in part 5. Have a great day.